Good to see you. Last week, USAID announced that it was distributing $4 billion to Ukraine for additional direct budgetary support. That covers, as I understand it, only 3 weeks of the government's current budget deficit. That is. Today, the government, it's reported, is further considering declaring default on its international debt obligations. I know this is, a concern of yours, certainly a concern of mine. So in your view, is the government of Ukraine's financial situation sustainable if the war continues for months or even years?
Thank you, Senator. And first, thank you for the resources to be able to be in a position to provide direct budget support. We've provided 3 tranches of that support so far, with another very large tranche on the way. I met with Madam Zelensky yesterday. This was issue number 1 on her mind as, the latest person to engage us on the fiscal crisis that they face. It's a very, very difficult situation, and it's why there is such urgency around putting sufficient, out of my lane, but military pressure on the Russian Federation so that negotiations can go further than they have up to this point. It's why the conversation we were just having about other donors, particularly, questions of whether the Europeans can come forward with comparable direct budget support alongside all the other contributions they're making in other sectors.
That's key, isn't it?
It is key. And then questions around the World Bank and the IMF and others, and whether other actors can be brought to the scene. I mean, you've allocated $8.5 billion in direct budget support. If we do that all at once, that's not going to bode well for a matter of weeks or months from now. So
how does European support collectively compare to American support right now?
In the area of direct budget support specifically?
Yes.
My understanding, but I'd want to revert, is that the European Commission has either provided or committed $500 million in direct budget support. But again, that is on top of also sheltering, no questions asked, 6 million refugees with all the social service, education, health, and so forth, and all the other emergency humanitarian assistance, which is of a very different order, that they provide to international organizations along with us.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the administration owes us a little more on that. What you see as we head into the future in terms of whether or not Ukraine's financial situation is sustainable, so that I can approach my constituents and say, listen, this is going to be a long haul. It's going to be very expensive, and these are equities that we'll have to.
It's very fair.
We'll have to weigh. Otherwise, because I can tell you, back home in Indiana, our hearts go out to the Ukrainians, and there's a certain understanding of the economic implications, but people are also weary. They're weary after Iraq and Afghanistan. They understand the economy is precarious right now, and this is the sentiment from the heartland, and our policy needs to be connected to those individuals. Otherwise, we're going to lose support and make impulsive decisions. So I'll look forward to working with you on that. I don't feel like we've really fully answered the question, and I don't feel like you've evaded the question, but good. I don't feel like we fully answered it. So let's continue this conversation in a very serious way with the Europeans as well, right? Does USAID and the Bureau for Humanitarian Assistance in particular have the staffing and capacity to manage the supplemental funding that it has received, Administrator?
I think we would not have been able to obligate over $11 billion for fiscal year 2022, which is 40% more than last year, which broke a record last year, if we could not manage. That said, when I first came up to this committee and to our appropriators, I made a fervent appeal to address staff depletion, particularly among contracting officers. We are surging contracting officers to be able to manage the flow, these big awards, but also smaller awards, because we want more local organizations.
Thank you. I'm gonna lob a question to Ambassador Thomas-Greenfield, because I do want to get to this, at least get the question on the record. So, and it pertains to the Black Sea ability to deliver food. I know that was asked earlier. I want to know if there are additional options to help get food into and out of Ukraine. Okay? And so if you can say yes, there are.
There are additional options that are being pursued. They will never be big enough to deal with the quantity of food. There's 20 million tons sitting to be moved out of the Black Sea. We've been able to move about 2.5 million tons through land and rail crossings, and we're trying to expand that, as Ambassador Powers mentioned earlier, and contributing to the European Union effort to do that, to fix the rails, but it can't account for the amount of food that will be required to move outside of Ukraine.
Okay, we'll follow up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you.